So Elizabeth, I'm so excited you're here with me today.
Oh, thanks.
So I'm here today with Elizabeth Markie. She is the founder of We Imagine Inc. And I'm going to get this right. She's a certified Brain Based NeuroLeadership and Heart Math Resilience Coach. Now that is a mouthful.
It is, isn't it?
Now we've known each other for a little while, so I know how amazing you are, but I have some questions for you because I really want to understand what neuroleadership is and how it can help people out there improve themselves, improve their careers. So the first thing I want to ask is, I know you do both professional with organizations, large companies, coaching, and you also do one-on-one coaching.
Right.
So I think a lot of people know about coaching in general, getting a business coach or a personal coach, but what is neuro leadership and brain-based coaching, and why is it different?
Well, it's vastly different. And actually, there's a lot of different types of coaching and styles of coaching. There's life coaching, there's communications coaching, there's regular business coaching, performance coaching. Brain-based and neuroleadership coaching is using the most recent neuroscience about the brain, and with that understanding, helping to really ask powerful questions that lead people to insight. So it's really helping people to think about their thinking. And neuroleadership is a deeper dive, really a study from a neuroscience perspective of how the brain works and how we interact and respond to change, facilitate change, how we learn and how we communicate and interact in teams and in social environments.
So I have a question kind of off topic, but when people talk about brain health, how does that affect how maybe we learn or how you coach somebody? Is there like a connection between brain health and coaching?
Well, I think in my coaching practice, I help people become aware of the importance of brain health. And when we talk about brain health, there's all kinds of things that contribute to a healthy brain. Sleep is a big one, obviously, exercise, nutrition, and learning. But most people, especially executives, a lot of times pride themselves on their lack of sleep, right? They powerhouse through things.
Yes.
And there's actually more activity in the brain when we're in sleep than when we're awake. So sleep is a really important component of brain health.
So if I have a new puppy and I just got 3 hours sleep last night, that's not a good thing?
Might not be your best thinking day today.
Oh, no. Okay, so improving ourselves and specifically increasing our productivity, right? That's really important when we have careers, we have jobs, whether we own our own business or we're working for someone else. But how does human behavior and more specifically kind of breaking maybe those bad habits that we have, how can brain-based coaching help me and everyone else do that?
Break habits?
Break habits.
Well, first of all, it's impossible to break a habit.
Oh, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, well, so we have neural pathways in our brain that create our behavior and our response to things, and they're ingrained. They're hardwired, actually. We have these hardwired neural pathways in our brain, and that's how we establish behaviors. And when we think about habits, most people use the terminology bad habits in front of that word. But realistically, everything we do is habit. Even the way we think, our thoughts become habitual over time. Otherwise, we'd have to learn something new every single day all over and over again. And so what we do instead of breaking bad habits is we actually create new behaviors, which create new habits and override the ingrained habits that are already in place.
So here's the question then, how would you go about kind of making those new habits, right? If you have these old, I'm not going to try to not call them bad habits, old habits that are
Right.
ingrained, how do you then get to a point where you can make these new habits that will help you maybe, you know, be more successful or get ahead or be happier in life? Or
Well, there's a couple of ways. The first thing is to bring somebody to the insight that they have a behavior that's no longer serving them. And we don't establish those habits as bad habits initially. They're ways for us to be successful. And we behave a certain way and it brings us our success, but then we find ourselves in a new environment, perhaps in a different relationship or a different business environment, and those established ways of behaving no longer serve us in that new environment. So having insight to that first is important. And then looking at what we need to do to replace that. And so typically creating a new behavior, we don't necessarily try and change everything that we do. But even if you take something simple, for example, let's say you want to quit drinking coffee because you recognize it makes you hyper and then you can't focus at work. And so rather than focusing on stopping to drink coffee, you replace that coffee with something else. So now instead of drinking coffee in the morning when I wake up, I drink hot water with lemon in it.
Right, right. Or an herbal tea maybe.
Or an herbal tea.
I like that though, the replacing versus, it's hard, right, just to stop something you've done over and over. So if there's a way to replace that, that makes sense to me. So I like that. So I talk a lot about mindfulness because when we're talking about living kind of a bolder, happier, more prosperous life, mindfulness comes into the topic of conversation a lot. So how does mindfulness, and I know it's kind of a buzzword that people are using all different definitions nowadays, so I'd like to know kind of what your definition of mindfulness is and how that goes into play in coaching somebody to be more successful.
That's a great question because it's interesting. I'll ask my clients what their definition of mindfulness is, and everybody has a different definition. But what I hear most frequently is, being able to pay attention to what somebody else is saying, or they'll say being able to meditate. Well, meditation is not mindfulness. Meditation is a tool to be able to become more mindful, and mindfulness is really about being aware of your own thinking, so that you understand what your brain is doing and the thoughts that you have, so that you can become more mindful of other people as well. But it really starts first with that awareness of within. Right.
So is there I don't want to say trick, maybe that's not the word, but you just said something in the beginning about being aware of maybe what somebody else is saying, being mindful in that moment when they're talking to you. And there are times when I'm stressed or I'm busy and somebody will be talking to me and partway through my mind starts going into what I need to do next and what's going on. And so is there some tool, maybe instead of trick, some tool that someone can use to make sure they stay mindful in whatever whatever they're doing?
There are many tools available, but I think the most important one, and why I actually do brain-based and neuroleadership coaching, is because I've found one of the most powerful tools is to be able to understand how your brain functions. And that's one of the things that I share with my clients in a very simplistic way so that they understand how their brain works, and that way they can actually start to manage their thoughts and their emotions. Just like going to the gym to build a muscle, well, you can have that same awareness by practicing and understanding how your brain works. So that's sort of the foundational one, and then from that point you can use things as we talk about breath and being able to breathe and awareness of breath. That's a big one in order to be able to balance your autonomic nervous system and to be able to bring the right neurochemical distribution to your brain so that you can think more clearly. Exercise as well. When you exercise, the brain creates something called BDNF, which is tabbed the miracle growth for the brain. So the things that we know that are healthy, exercise, sleep, nutrition, all come into play. But when you really have an understanding of the importance that makes to the brain and your ability to think clearly and engage your prefrontal cortex versus your limbic system, then you're going to be much more successful.
Interesting. So you're also the author of Try Brain,
Try
Brain Yoga, and Try Brain Wellness. Can you explain what
Try Brain?
And
So Try Brain is based on the concept and the fact that we have three brains. We don't just have a cognitive brain. Our heart and our gut are considered brains as well, and that's because the heart and the gut have their own neurological system, and they have the ability to learn and to recall, to have memory. And it's a bilateral communication, bidirectional I should say, not bilateral, a bidirectional communication process that takes place between the heart and the brain and the gut and the brain. And actually the heart sends more messages to the brain than the brain does to the heart, and the same thing with the gut. So our new learnings around neuroscience, the brain and the nervous system, central nervous system, has really uncovered a lot.
Right. And so it used to be that we talked a lot just about heart health, right? And now we're hearing a lot more about brain health, and then just recently too, now gut health. So you're saying they all kind of work together.
Yeah, they all work together. It's all one system. Yeah. But you can utilize your heart and your gut brains in order to have a more efficient cognitive brain. So for example, utilizing the heart brain. The heart sends electrical pulses and messages to the brain, also distributes chemicals. And so when you understand that you can use breath to monitor and change your heartbeat, you can have more efficiency in your ability to think clearly.
So would it be the same with, I know we mentioned mindfulness, but meditation, is that part of it then too? I mean, is it important? You're talking about breath work. Is meditation important as well for then brain health or for cognitive learning?
Absolutely. Because meditation, yoga, breath work, anything that actually works as a tool to rebalance the autonomic nervous system and reduce stress responses is critical to be able to have clear thinking.
Okay, so is that why then, I have to ask this, you just recently took a 200-hour yoga certification course, and so how does yoga now fit into your coaching practice, or how does that work?
So yoga actually fit into my coaching practice way back, because when I coach, I make sure that I go to yoga first, so that I can be really present with my clients. I'm calm, I'm centered, and I'm very focused. And as I continued to do that, and then learned more about our cognitive brain, actually all three of our brains, I had the realization of what a strong and powerful tool it is overall. So I went and got certified, and I actually created something called Tri-Brain Yoga. And so what I do with that is I actually provide the science behind yoga to yoga instructors, so that they can go beyond understanding the anatomy of yoga and the spiritual practice of yoga to including the neuroscience benefits as well.
How wonderful is that? And I know you've done a few classes locally, and they've all been sold out, like absolutely amazing. I remember trying to get into one, and it was already sold out. So I know you're going and helping the instructors learn this practice so they can teach it, but you've also taught a few and can't get into them. So we got to know early on, right, that you're there and that you're teaching it, so we can sneak in before it's sold out. So this is on your website, and I know when we've talked before, you talk about you coach the whole person. What does that mean?
So what I mean by that is, a lot of times, particularly when companies hire me to coach business executives or individuals, they'll say, I want to perform better in business, I want to be a stronger leader. And when I talk about whole person, people tend to separate their professional lives from their personal lives. And quite honestly, I believe that when we get to work and we put our car in the parking lot, we walk in the front door, I don't believe that we leave our family or our friends or what's happening in the rest of our lives in that parking lot or garage. We bring it into the office with us. And it's foundational part of our lives. So that usually comes up as a component that's very integrated and important to people in their overall success and how they feel about life.
I love hearing you say that. So with Project Bold Life, that is pretty much what we talk about every day, is that you're a whole person. You have all these different areas of your life. I mean, there's career, there's family, there's your health, there's your well-being, there's your outside community, there's, the giving back that you may do, or philanthropy. There's all these pillars that then become your life if you're able to make it bold. So you can't just leave one out or say that one's not important, or I'm just going to focus on this one today. It's really, we're a whole person. So I love hearing that. It was really, when I read that on your site, I'm like, I have to ask her about that because it fits so nicely with everything we talk about at Project Bold Life. So Elizabeth, you're, very successful in your coaching. Can you give me a little background of what did you do prior to starting We Imagine?
Oh, prior to starting We Imagine. Actually, I have a strong hospitality background.
Okay.
And I worked in that industry for a lot of years, from sort of ground up, and in the end in executive roles in operations, brand marketing, sales, and leadership roles.
When you work one-on-one with somebody, what's the first thing you try to learn about the individual? Or is there a first thing that you try to learn as you start the coaching practice with them?
Oh, that's a good question. Everybody is so different. So usually I try and learn a little bit about their past, not a lot, but about significant things that they remember. And that sort of tells me what led to forming some of their behaviors today or the way they look at the world. Because it's early on that we establish our perceptions and our responses to things, and we usually maintain that same type of thinking and behavior into the current time. And as a brain-based coach, it's my job to help people reach those aha moments where they actually have a paradigm shift in perhaps how they're perceiving the world around them.
What would you say is, I know you coach lots of individuals, what would they say was the main thing that came out of this type of coaching? Would there be something like, I'm not asking you really for a testimonial as much as, what you hear maybe, because I think sometimes people are scared about the word coaching.
Yeah, so I think some of the things that I hear, and I think the one I hear over and over again as it relates to brain-based coaching and when people learn about their brain and how it functions, multiple people have said to me, wow, I had no idea I was operating on autopilot for so long. And so I guess the end result does lead them to a greater level of self-awareness and mindfulness.
If you had, just one tip for our listeners who are out there that, are maybe thinking about, learning more about themselves, possibly getting a professional or a personal coach, what would that kind of tip be, I guess, for them?
Well, as far as getting a coach, if they're looking to do that, which I would advocate for anybody to do, right, in any type of coach, make sure you interview multiple people because it's really about establishing a relationship of trust as a foundation for that coaching relationship. But I think above and beyond that, even without a coach, I think the first step in any type of growth and development is really awareness. Start to really pay attention to your thinking and your views about things and check in and see if that's really true, because we tell ourselves a lot of stories.
Yep, that's a wonderful takeaway. So if our listeners and our viewers wanted to find out more about you, where would they go to do that?
Oh, they can go to my website. It's my name, elizabethmarkie.com.
Okay, and we'll put that up. Elizabeth, Thanks. It was absolutely wonderful talking with you today. You are amazing, and
Thanks,
I'm so glad that you get to share your knowledge with all of us. I appreciate it.
Me too. Thanks so much.